Gavin Newsom says that he will run for the president if Biden doesn't, and a lot of people think that he's going to win if he goes through it, so we'll be talking about that and what that means for the general parlance of American politics. In other news, a Texas sheriff opens up a criminal probe into Desantis, meaning the state has been used now twice to go after political enemies and especially contenders for the presidency. So we'll talk about that and what that means. The White House has come up with a framework to both regulate crypto and also to create their own digital dollar. So we'll go over just a bit of that and where we go from there. And New York City fires 850 more unvaccinated teachers because, hey, you got to get that jab, otherwise you cannot participate in common society. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome back to Midterm Season. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So that's really loud with the background music. Let's take that down a little bit. So yesterday I tuned into the Daily Ignoramus with most of you when we did the raid yesterday, and we saw a blank screen. We had sound on that one, but we saw a blank screen because Stephen Ignoramus was having a lot of technical difficulties going on with this software. And now I am as well. Ron is telling me that there is a blank screen and no sound, which we will figure out what's going on with that. I'm actually going to reset my Restream bot as well because it does not appear to be attached to the YouTube chat. So let me actually get that reset up here. I think that might be because of... No, I have no access back in. I can't use the Restream bot out to chat out to YouTube chat. I can see your chats coming in on all the platforms, but I can't see it going out. So that's good. And okay, yeah, it's running now. But also, it's taking forever. Like, I archived my IBD links, 3 of them, because none of them were coming up. And I did just refresh one now, and it's back up. And it was all hidden behind the paywall before, but the archive is taking forever. We're actually going to check in and see where the archive still is. And it's been archiving since 6:45. Which means it's been archiving for over an hour at this point, and we're still not all the way through. And, I mean, it used to fly. Now, if you were at a point where you were trying to archive from 17,000 positions behind, it would take a while. But typically, if you were within a couple thousand, it still only took like 15 minutes. It's been archiving for over an hour, and it started from position 728. The first one that I did, and then there are a couple others that are back there as well. But yeah, they're still archiving. Luckily, again, I did a refresh, and they took the paywall down away from one of them. But yeah, I've been marred with Gremlins too, and yesterday I just overslept. Plus, tried to organize 60 tabs after I overslept. So we are going to come back and get into the 7:30 start time again. We do have to watch for the Gremlins and see what's going over there, and we have to get with the 7:30 start time because, man, they're going to keep piling news on top of us here to try to keep you from talking about the fact that the leader of the free world stood on a stage with his fist shaking and stopped just short of calling for the extermination of his political enemies. So that'll be a part of what's on the stack. We'll be talking about Desantis. We'll be talking about Newsom. I've got an interesting article about Sarah Ryo, given the fact that, yeah, we're going to be, all the presidents are under investigation now, or all the contenders are under investigation. So, yeah, let's talk about all that over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Porch Boys. Go check out Mr. Behavior, PJ Patriot, KTZed, Tweets by Brit, the No Gimmicks podcast. Although I think he is taking a break right now because it looks like the last I checked in on him, he is in Europe right now. I don't know if he's uploading from there, but he is on a European tour. So once he's back stateside, if he's not uploading right now, go check him out as well. And let's get started with the news, and let's talk about what's going on in the world. Starting with the Dow, which of course is going to be refreshed already because of technical difficulties. Let's get started on that. The Dow is showing 31,019.68, which means it did come back up yesterday after the futures fell, and it struggled through the line. This was the previous close down here. So it struggled across the previous close line, and it fell back below that as well, and bringing itself back up into positive territory with a big rally at the close. But it looks like the futures are again down, so we'll talk about that, because that Fed meeting is making a lot of people really, really nervous. So we will see what happens with that. Looking in at your Bitcoin is at $19,107 US and 50 US cents today. That is a $596.10 US cent drop. So it's lost 3% throughout the day. It has come back up throughout the day as well. I guess we're looking at the 5 day. Let's get a refresh on that, because this has also been over an hour since I looked this up. Okay, on the 1 day, we had another dump. It's down to $19,142 US and 70 US cents. On the day, it's down 2.26 to or $442 US and 60 US cents. So we're starting to see some of this come out of here, and it does look like there is some pressure on people to try to keep themselves into the markets and try to keep some of their retirements. Now, Over yesterday, it did make itself a rally, but it's starting to falter back out again, so we will see what happens with this and where this goes. Looking in at gas. I've noticed that I haven't heard the gas has fallen for 100 straight days commentary on Twitter over again. Because, again, as I've noted, it's starting to come back up, and it fell for Labor Day weekend. It actually fell. I was kind of impressed by how much it fell for that, but we still have that one station, oddly enough, in Stoughton that's selling for $2.89. And that's been reported since we looked at it yesterday, so I might have to go up to Stoughton, throw some gas in the truck for that kind of price. Elsewhere along the Madison area, the 318s are down. We are up to 319 as your low price leader, and that is out in Sun Prairie, all the way out west in Middleton, and all the way out in Wyocena, which is up in Columbia County. Otherwise, we're starting to see 322 in Lodi. Some of the Madison proper stations are also at 323. I almost said 322, but they're not there. Although others of them, closer to Midtown, have come up to 327. So we're starting to see that that gas price creep back up, which is bad news coming into midterms, which also seems to be why I think we're trying to focus on all the top Republican leadership is under investigation right now, but we'll see what happens with this. Let's grab the article that didn't dump itself behind the paywall. Actually, let's check in on our progress right now. This is the one that I was going to start with. This is the one that's been archiving for over an hour, and we're down to 410 in queue for that, from 768, over an hour. And the other two that I picked up later are at 670 and 675 respectively. But the one that didn't go behind the paywall, from Investors Business Daily, Dow Futures fall ahead of Fed meeting, Treasury yields jump, Ford tumbles on inflation warning. From Scott Latonin, Dow Futures dropped more than 200 points Tuesday ahead of the Federal Reserve's two-day policy meeting. The 10-year Treasury yield jumped to another 11-year high, without a GDP to back it up. Ford skidded more than 4% after warning that it expects $1 billion more in supplier costs in the current third quarter due to inflation. Diamondback Energy was started with an overweight rating at Key Bank. Shares are building a cup with handle with 141.87 entry. Western Digital was downgraded to hold from buy at Deutsche Bank, sparking a 2% retreat in early morning trade. Elsewhere, electric vehicle maker Tesla traded a fraction lower on Tuesday. Among the Dow Industrials, tech titans Apple and Microsoft are both modestly lower. Ahead of today's stock market open, Nike was downgraded at Barclays as shares fell more than 2% in early morning trade. In the market's current weakness, Continental Resources, Double Verify, Vertex Pharmaceuticals, as well as Dow Jones stocks Chevron and Merck are among the top stocks to watch. Keep in mind, the new stock market correction is a good reason for investors to be mostly, if not entirely, on the sidelines. Double Verify is an IB leaderboard stock, but its position size was trimmed during last week's losses. Tesla was featured in this week's Stocks Near a Buy Zone column. On the futures, ahead of Tuesday's opening bell, Dow futures were down 0.7 versus fair value, while the S&P gave up 0.75%. The Nasdaq lost 0.8 in morning action. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Among the ETFs, Nasdaq 100 Tracker and Vasco QQQ Trust was down 0.8%, and the SPDR S&P 500 ETF lost 0.7 in early trade. The 10-year Treasury yield jumped 3.56% on Tuesday, hitting another new high. Meanwhile, U.S. oil prices inched lower as West Texas Intermediate futures traded near $85 a barrel. The Federal Reserve's two-day meeting will kick off Tuesday with an interest rate decision on Wednesday. Markets show an 82% chance the central bank will raise rates by 75 basis points and an 18% chance of a 100 basis point hike. Investors will be looking for hints at the pace of future rate hikes and how high the central bank will eventually go. Well, you keep inflating the currency, and we have no GDP to back it up. By the way, I'm looking again over the numbers and what we're seeing coming out of profit margins, coming out of layoffs and everything else. And last week I was 50-50 on whether we would go up 0.1% or down 0.1% in GDP. I'm putting that more into the 75 camp of us going down 10th of a percent, and I do think that there's a chance that it goes even further than that, like maybe 0.3 or 0.4. I'm not ready to say that we're going to lose a full percentage point in GDP, but I think it's getting increasingly likely that our third quarter GDP also falls. And I do have to wonder if this means that we're going to be in a recession at this point, if they're finally admit it. It's getting a little bit sketchy out here, folks, and the cold weather is coming, which means people are going to start turning their heaters on. So we'll be talking about that, where we go with that, what this means, and let's get started. Well, actually, no, we got to do CNBC first. 397 was the lowest it got while we were sitting here waiting for the original article. All right, let's grab one from CNBC. Dow closes nearly 200 points higher. Stock snap 2-day losing streak to start big Fed week. From Samantha Subin and Tanaya McKeel. Stocks closed higher on Monday in a volatile trading session ahead of the Federal Reserve's 2-day policy meeting slated to kick off on Tuesday. The Dow jumped 197.26 or 0.64 to close at 31,019.68. The S&P gained 0.69% to 38,99.89, and the Nasdaq ended 0.75% higher to 11,535.02. Stocks wavered between gains and losses throughout the session, with the 30 stock index down as much as 263 points earlier in the day. At session lows, the S&P and the Nasdaq shed more than 0.9% each. Yields pushed higher ahead of the Fed's likely decision to raise benchmark rate by another 0.75 of a point. To snuff out inflation later this week, the 10-year Treasury yield topped 3.51% and hit its highest level in 11 years. After some brief hope over the summer that the Fed may be done with its aggressive tightening campaign, investors have been dumping stocks again on fears the central bank will go too far and trip the economy into a recession. A recession that we've actually already been in for 2 months. Well, technically 10 months, 9 months. Because, 2 quarters. But we don't talk about that. It's not a recession until Biden tells us it's a recession. The people who would be politically affected are the ones who get to tell us whether or not we're hurting or not. Investors are focused on the Fed's policy meeting slated to begin on Tuesday, where the central bank is expected to raise interest rates by another 75 basis points. Investors are also watching for guidance about corporate earnings before the next reporting season begins in October. We're in a wait-and-see approach, and markets are waiting for some kind of bullish or bearish catalyst to send us out of this trading range. Said Adam Sarhan, CEO of 50 Park Investments, the markets are struggling for direction, and that's a fundamental news. So, that's what we see coming out of that. I guess we will continue to watch and see, number one, if the GDP drops any lower. We're in the final 2 weeks of this quarter. And if the stocks drop any lower. Let's get into the main news of the day, and I do have a couple up on top before we get in and talk about Martha's Vineyard again. Starting from the New York Post, California's Newsom will run for president if Biden doesn't, according to a report. That is not the good news that you guys probably think that it is. California Governor Gavin Newsom is undeniably, unequivocally preparing to seek the Democratic presidential nomination in 2024 if Biden decides not to run for a second term, and is poised to take on Vice President Harris, according to a report on Monday. Newsom, who recently challenged Florida's Republican Governor Ron Desantis to a debate over his sending 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard, plans to make an announcement after the midterm elections once the president relays his intentions, the Wrap reported. No ifs, ands, or buts he will run if Biden does not, a leading California fundraiser told the outlet. The governor, who's running for re-election against Republican Brian Dahle in Deep Blue, California, is expected to win easily, and has also been running ads against Texas to taunt Governor Abbott about gun laws in the Lone Star State. But Biden, in an interview on CBS's 60 Minutes Sunday, said he was much too early to declare his intentions to seek a second term. Hey, look, fat! And as I said to begin with, that I would run again, but it's just an intention. But Is it a firm decision that I run again? It remains to be seen. Newsom, for the record, has said that he has no interest in running for the president, but he has in the past months been increasing his profile outside of California. Last week, he launched billboard campaigns in 7 GOP-led states, offering residents information about abortion in the wake of the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade in June. He also established a website, abortion.ca.gov, to point out that the procedure is legal and protected in California. Bro, here's my message to any woman seeking an abortion care in these anti-freedom states. Come to California, bro. We will defend your constitutional right to make decisions about your own health, Newsom said in a news release on Thursday. Probably also, on the undertone, said, I'll cheat on my wife and dump it in you, and then you can go get the abortion right here in California while you're here. Dude, look at him. Who thinks that this is a person who should be the president? And then look over here at the person who would still have his state under lockdowns if it was politically convenient. The idea that these Republican politicians are seeking to protect life is a total farce, bro. They're seeking to restrict and control their constituents and take away their freedom, it continued. He also sent a letter to AG Garland seeking an investigation into Abbott and Desantis for transporting migrants to cities outside their states, including the Florida governors flying 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard. Desantis, who is considered likely to seek the Republican presidential nomination, shrugged off the threat. So the governor of California sent a letter to the Department of Justice saying you need to prosecute Texas and Florida governors. All I can say is I think his hair gel is interfering with his brain function, Desantis said in a response. Dude, that dude looks like a mob boss in that. I know I use the surfer dude voice for that, but that dude looks like a mob boss right there. Holy crap. All right. Gavin Newsom. Let's talk about this for a second. The first thing that I want to point out as a Wisconsin resident is why this is different from the progressive groups. For Gavin Newsom to run for re-election while seeking the presidency openly. Now, there's a reason I bring that up. Actually, I gotta get the YouTube up here because I don't know if anybody's chatting over there. Because I can't see that coming in. I know I saw Blind Fear pop in before. So let me get that live stream up over here. Ah, yes, we do have people over here chatting. And I can't see them. Not on the tool. Alright, anyway, let's talk Newsom. During the 2016 cycle, in 2014-2015, in 2014 especially, when Walker was running for re-election in my state, the big ad campaign from progressive groups was that how can we possibly, feasibly, re-elect Scott Walker when we could go with Mary Burke instead, the wonderful Mary Burke? How can we possibly feasibly have Walker be the governor if he's going to seek the presidency? He's just going to leave us all behind, don't you know? So why would we ever go and follow him for that? It's a tragedy, you guys. It's such a tragedy. Please stop trying to support Walker because he might not stick around with us. And yes, that was an ad campaign that came around in my state. Now, Newsom is openly ready to go seek the presidency if Biden doesn't go and seek the presidency. And yet, these probably same progressive groups that are probably all out of California to start with are all in for re-electing Gavin Newsom. That's my first problem with this. My second problem is this is a person who has almost no chance of winning over enough middle ground states to hit the presidency. He is too far to the left. And I understand that once he gets on the campaign, he's going to be like Barack Obama. Barack Obama, if you guys remember, and this was part of the reason that I am not a Democrat anymore, was because of the primary agenda. Barack Obama on the primary ran way out to the left on the primary side. Pay for everything. And this was where I started really paying attention to politics because, I was an anti-war Democrat at the time. Rock against Bush, that kind of thing. But I had a friend who had texted me while Obama was winning the primaries and says, I don't want all of my wages to go pay for people who don't want to work, because that was a part of Obama's primary agenda. Guaranteed income, welfare for everybody, expansion of welfare, healthcare for all on the taxpayer dime, single payer, this kind of thing. He ran way out to the left. And then drew it into the center for the general campaign, and then turned into another boring neoliberal who went off and put his entire presidency into destabilizing the Middle East once he was in office. I understand that Newsom is going to temper his campaign when he comes back in. But my biggest hope is that the internet is forever, and they remember just how far to the left that he is once he's out there campaigning. I hope somebody nails him on the fact that he wishes he'd still have his state locked down right now. So, that's what we see for Newsom. What else do we have? I have this one here from KNWA, NBC, and Fox 24 out of Fayetteville. Beyond Meat COO arrested for biting man's nose near Razorback Stadium. Kind of sounds to me like he needs more meat in his diet. No, nothing bad happened in the recall election. Everything was totally above board. Gavin Newsom's the most popular governor in California history, just like Joe Biden's the most popular president in American history. Nothing bad happened, no rigging. It's impossible to rig an election unless Donald Trump gets in. Remember that. A food company executive was arrested on a pair of charges after reportedly biting a man's nose in a parking garage in Fayetteville on Saturday night. Doug Ramsey, 53 of Fayetteville, was arrested on September 17th on charges of terroristic threatening and third-degree battery. According to a preliminary report, the incident happened at a parking garage near Razorback Stadium following Arkansas's victory over Missouri State. Just after 10 p.m., an officer was dispatched to Gate 15 for a disturbance that had previously occurred in the Stadium Drive parking garage. The responding officer found two males with bloody faces at the scene. The officer spoke with both parties and witnesses and determined that Ramsey was allegedly in the traffic lane of the structure, attempting to leave when a Subaru inched his way in front of Ramsey's Bronco, making contact with the front passenger side tire. Ramsey got out of the vehicle and allegedly punched through the back windshield of the Subaru, according to the report. The owner of the Subaru then got out, and he stated that Ramsey pulled him in close and started punching his body, according to the report. Ramsey also bit the owner's nose, ripping the flesh on the tip of the nose. See what happens when you don't get enough meat in your diet? The victim and the witnesses also reported hearing Ramsey threaten to kill the owner of the Subaru. Occupants of both vehicles got out and helped separate the parties. Mr. Ramsey, you need a burger. And not a Beyond Burger either, by the way. You need a burger, dude. A nice big juicy piece of steak. I guarantee you'll feel a lot better after that. Alright, what else do we have? We're gonna use this as our transition point, and we're gonna go right into the Martha's Vineyard stories that we have up on top. From the Blaze, if you are a Republican, you're a Nazi, tweets Sarah Ryo, who previously said looking at the American flag makes her want to puke. From Alex Nitzberg. Sarah Ryo, who's previously said that looking at the US flag makes her want to puke, has claimed that all Republicans are Nazis. Just like most of your progressive Democrats did, and have been doing since oh, I don't know, Dole. That's as far back as I can remember. They were probably doing it for HW back in the 80s, and Reagan in the early 80s, and Ford in the 70s. I'm sure this goes back much, much further than the internet. This is a Trump rally from last night. At a glance, it could be a Nazi Germany, Ryo tweeted on Sunday. If you're a Republican, then you're a Nazi. If you're married to, dating, or friends with a Republican, you're married to, dating, or friends with a Nazi. If you don't want to be a Nazi, speak up. Because everybody raised the one finger in the air. Should probably not take that up out of frame. Given what we're talking about especially. Shouldn't maybe not do that? Rao has a very negative opinion of the U.S. She previously described America as a racist, transphobic, homophobic, xenophobic, ableist, classist, Islamophobic, misogynistic dumpster fire. As such, seeing the American flag makes me want to vomit, she tweeted in June. Rao is co-author of the forthcoming book, White Women, Everything You Already Know About Your Own Racism and How to Do Better. Oh, this woman sounds charming. A book description says the work is a call to action for those of you who are looking to take steps in dismantling white supremacy. Your white supremacy, if you are in fact doing real anti-racism work, you will find few reasons to be nice, as other white people want to limit your membership in the club. Well, this woman sounds charming, doesn't she? If you're not ticking white people off on a regular basis, you're not doing it right. Oh, goodness. Anyway. I'm going to drink some more coffee and we're going to keep on with the news. So, in such an important vein in this, Aaron Parnas, after Sarah Ryo says that all Republicans are Nazis, Aaron Parnas says, "It's official. The Republican Party's top two 2024 presidential candidates, Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, are now under criminal investigation." And I found this tweet I think it was after I was live, because Brady Leonard quote tweeted it, pointing out the fact that I don't think this says what you think that it says. And it really, honestly, doesn't. Weren't we complaining not that long ago? Maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago about the possibility of a Trump partisan DOJ going after political enemies and how this doesn't happen in a functioning republic? Because it seems to me that I remember that argument coming up every time I heard, "Lock her up! Lock her up!" And dare I say, those moronic progressive Democrats, and the Republicans that were on board with the two in the mono party, were right. Because we don't use the power of the state to go after political enemies, or at least we're not supposed to. It was good sloganeering, it was fun, and it pointed out some of the problems that were with the Hillary campaign, but at the end of the day, we all knew that there was nothing that was going to happen for that, because we don't use the DOJ to go after a political adversary. We are not communist China. We are not Tin Pot North Korea. We are not Soviet Russia. And we are not 1930s Germany. We don't do this here. Except now, apparently, we do. As the number 1 and number 2 polled contenders for the presidency are now both under an investigation by the same DOJ. And nobody thinks that this is a problem, oddly enough. Our friends on the progressive left, this is fine. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law at all. So that's interesting to see. But now the civil and the criminal starting with the Daily Mail. Lawyers for 30 of the Venezuelan migrants flown to Martha's Vineyard by Florida Governor Ron Desantis call for criminal probe because he falsely promised jobs and immigration help. From James Gordon for DailyMail.com. Isn't that the commissioner and previously the detective from Gotham City, James Gordon? Attorneys who are representing 30 of the 48 Venezuelan asylum seekers who were flown from Texas to Martha's Vineyard off Massachusetts are looking to open a criminal investigation claiming they were induced to board airplanes and cross state lines under false pretenses. Were there false pretenses when you were induced to cross national lines? Because I kind of think that there were. Boston-based group Lawyers for Civil Rights, who are representing the asylum seekers pro bono for a political statement, say the group, which includes women and toddlers, were duped in a coordinated political stunt that targeted vulnerable people based on their race and country of origin. Because of course they are. Because why wouldn't they? Individuals working in concert with state officials, including the Florida governor, made numerous false promises to the migrants, including of work opportunities, schooling for their children, and immigration assistance, in order to induce them to travel, the lawyers state. The lawyers are now urging U.S. Attorney Rachel Rollins and the Mass Attorney General Maura Healey to open up criminal investigations into those who were behind the transportation of the group. We strongly believe that the criminal laws were broken by the perpetrators of the stunt, LCR wrote in a letter. Here is the letter. AG Maura Healey, Office of the Attorney General, 1 Ashburton Place, Boston, Massachusetts, is a recipient via email. RE, Criminal Investigation of Abuse of Migrants, Martha's Vineyard Incident. Dear AG Healey, Lawyers for Civil Rights, henceforth known as LCR, represents approximately 30 immigrants who were flown to Martha's Vineyard earlier this week as part of a shameful political stunt. Since shortly after the planes arrived, LCR legal staff have been on the ground in Martha's Vineyard and now at Joint Base Cape Cod interviewing affected individuals and gathering factual information. While we are working to protect our clients' rights in immigration proceedings and exploring remedies for civil rights violations, we also strongly believe that criminal laws are broken by the perpetrators of this stunt. We therefore ask that you open a criminal investigation into this matter. Our clients were induced to board airplanes and cross state lines under false pretenses. Individuals working in concert with the Florida governor made numerous false promises to our clients, including work opportunities, schooling for their children, and immigration assistance, in order to induce them to travel. It was only when the flight was midair that they were informed they would be flown to Martha's Vineyard. Meanwhile, by the way, they had the map of Martha's Vineyard. Rather than to Boston, as many has been told, once the planes landed, those who had induced our clients to travel under these false pretenses disappeared, leaving our clients to learn that the offers of assistance had been a ruse to exploit them for political purposes. This conduct deprived our clients of their liberty by deceptions and interfered with their ability to comply with federal immigration obligations, such as attendance at hearings and check-ins. The perpetrators targeted our clients based on race and national origin in order to make the political point they wanted. They preyed on the vulnerability of our clients, many of whom had suffered deep trauma in their home countries and on the journeys to the United States, and exploited vulnerability to win trust through false pretenses. So, kind of like when they were told to come to this country, that the borders would be wide open and this was the land of opportunity. These actions were coordinated and orchestrated. Many of our clients were put up in hotels, paid for by those making the false representations until flights could be coordinated, and there were enough people to fill the planes. This type of conspiracy to deprive our clients of their liberty and civil rights must be thoroughly investigated for violations of the Massachusetts Civil Rights Act and all other applicable criminal laws. It goes on. One more paragraph. We and our clients are willing to help in criminal investigation in any way that we can. In addition to extensive information gained through client interviews, we have also gathered documentary evidence, including photos of some of the individual perpetrators, other information that should allow law enforcement to identify and locate them, and documents our clients were required to sign. We are working closely with immigration attorneys, including Susan Church, Rachel Stelf, and Julio Enriquez, who represent some of the clients in their individual immigration proceedings as well. Thank you in advance for your assistance in this matter. Sincerely, Ivan Espinoza Madrigal, Executive Director, Oren Selstrom, Litigation Director. What's the charge? Well, trafficking illegal immigrants, I guess, is going to be the charge. The problem that we have with this is that there is a counter. And, I mean, we all know, and obviously two wrongs don't make a right, but on top of this as well, these people in these sanctuary areas have called for illegal immigrants to come to their areas in swaths because they're a sanctuary city. Desantis helped them along. Now, my big question here, if you are a sanctuary city in a place like Chicago that doesn't touch a border, in a place like Boston that doesn't touch a border, or any of these small towns in Massachusetts that we discussed yesterday, in a place like New York City that doesn't touch a border, in a place like DC that doesn't touch a border, one of the things to keep in mind with that is, as in sanctuary status, you are encouraging, although possibly not directly, that there's an indirect to this, you are encouraging the crossing of state lines by illegal migrants. California can get away with it because it touches a border. New Mexico, which I believe is also a sanctuary state, can get away with it because it touches the border. So we do have some issues that go along with this. I don't know if this can even go anywhere. And again, we also come off with the fact that the DOJ, both on the state and the federal level, because this would involve federal jurisdiction, should be, and I'm not going to say that they're going to be, because at this point I think that that would be a lie, but they should be reluctant to take up a case like this, because this is going after your political enemies, especially given the fact that, once again, these sanctuary areas ask for their migrants. And we'll step aside with the policies that voted to allow them to come in. And it goes further than that. From the Hill, Texas Sheriff opens probe into DeSantis migrant flight to Martha's Vineyard. From Chloe Fulmar. Bexar County, Texas Sheriff Javier Salazar opened an investigation on Monday into Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' controversial transport of approximately 50 migrants from San Antonio to Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. We're opening up a case and investigation with regard to the suspected activities involving 48 migrants from Venezuela, Salazar said in a news briefing. The sheriff said that the group of Venezuelan migrants were lured from a migrant resource center into traveling to Martha's Vineyard under a false pretense. According to Salazar, one Venezuelan migrant was paid to recruit the others, who were allegedly promised work and other benefits before the group was flown first to Florida and then to Massachusetts. They were taken to Martha's Vineyard for, from what we can gather, a little more than a video op, and they were unceremoniously stranded in Martha's Vineyard, he said, before the good people of Martha's Vineyard loaded them onto buses and said, "You gots to go." DeSantis flew the group of migrants north on Wednesday in an effort to draw attention to his stance against liberal immigration policies. So we know a lot of this here. Let's skip down to here. Immigrants have been more than willing to leave Bexar County after being abandoned, homeless, and left to fend for themselves, DeSantis Communication Director Taryn Pensky told The Hill in an email. Do we have something about Salazar? Yes. Salazar said on Monday that the migrants from San Antonio were exploited and hoodwinked into making the trip to Florida and then onward to Martha's Vineyard for what I believe to be nothing more than a political posturing to make a point. What infuriates me the most about this case is that here we have 48 people that already are on hard times. They're here legally in our country at that point, and they have every right to be where they are. I believe that they were preyed upon, he said. Are they, though? Are they legally in our country? Because a lot of the times I'm going to need to see some papers for that. As far as what's going on here. Now, these people actually seemed, when we looked at this on Monday, to be quite happy to be Martha's Vineyard. We saw the same thing on Friday. They seemed to be quite happy to be in Martha's Vineyard. To have been able to take the trip and then get on the bus and go out to Joint Base Cape Cod. One of the things that gets me about this, when we look at something like this, is the fact that now, for lack of a better term, an ambulance-chasing lawyer, or group of lawyers at this point, came out, chased the ambulance, and said, hey, we can go probably make a couple bucks off of this if we either refer a criminal charge or get a civil suit out of this. Let's go in and we'll make Desantis pay the court costs if we can get a civil settlement out of this. Hey, migrants, hey, no. We'll represent you for free. We just need you to say whatever it is that we want you to say. Oh, tell us how terrible Desantis was for bringing you up here. Tell us all about how terrible it was. Hey, we'll get you a couple bucks off of this too. And in essence, using these people as pawns. But, it's okay when progressive Democrat lawyers from Boston use them as pawns. It's only evil when DeSantis does it. Breaking on this, DeSantis' office issues blistering response to Democrat sheriff who launched probe into flights. My first question there is, do we have video? We do not. We do have visual aids. From Ryan Saavedra. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis fired back at a Democrat sheriff in Texas who announced Monday afternoon his county is opening an investigation into the 50 illegal immigrants that were flown to Martha's Vineyard last week. Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar announced the investigation during a press conference, saying that he was bothered by the flights and we're absolutely opening up an investigation into this. However, Salazar admitted he could not name any laws that were broken and did not name any suspects. Yeah, I'm a little bit curious as to how the trafficking thing goes, because that seems to be the law that all of our armchair law professors over on Twitter keep citing. A spokesperson for DeSantis responded to Salazar's remarks by saying in a statement, immigrants have been more than willing to leave Bexar County after being abandoned, homeless, and left to fend for themselves. Florida gave them an opportunity to seek greener pastures in a sanctuary jurisdiction that offered greater resources for them, as we expected. The spokesperson continued, unless the Massachusetts National Guard has abandoned these individuals, they have been provided accommodations, sustenance, clothing, and more options to succeed, following their unfair enticement into the United States, unlike the 53 immigrants who died in a truck found abandoned in Bexar. Ooh, that's right, that is that county. Ooh, I remember that. Who died in a truck found abandoned in Bexar County this June. Yeah, we talked about that on KTZed Redemption. DeSantis said at a press conference that the people who were contracted gave the illegal immigrants a release to sign and a packet that included a map of Martha's Vineyard, so it was obvious that that's where they were going, and they gave that to them, DeSantis added. Florida's Voice reported Monday that they obtained one of the brochures that the illegal immigrants were given prior to heading to Martha's Vineyard. The publication said that they confirmed the information with the governor's office. The brochure, which was written in both English and Spanish, is titled Massachusetts Refugee Benefits, Massachusetts Beneficios para Refugiados. That includes pictures of Massachusetts. My Spanish is a little bit rusty, pronunciation-wise. Florida's Voice said the brochure contained the information directly from the Massachusetts government website. Let's have a look at this. Massachusetts, beneficios para refugiados. Teléfono. Página de red. Servicios de comunidad y iglesias, community services and churches. And yes, they have, and it's all got 508 numbers, so that does cover the vast majority of that region of the state. But we've got Immigration Resource Center, Federated Church in Edgartown, Massachusetts, which is on Martha's Vineyard, down here, Hebrew Center, Vineyard Haven, and the Martha's Vineyard Community Services. So it kind of seems like these people weren't duped, but again, given the fact that they may get a large amount of money off a lawsuit or get to be the poster boy for more progressive policy, or get promised a better life, or get promised by a lawyer that they can disappear into the system, I've got a little bit of feeling going on here that they're just saying whatever it is that the ambulance chasing lawyers want them to say. All right. From the Blaze. NBC Anchor. NPC Anchor, not NBC. NPC Anchor floats conspiracy that Desantis flew migrants to Martha's Vineyard to cover for GOP senator. Convenient timing. From Chris Enlow. NBC News anchor F. Chuck Todd suggested Sunday that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sent migrants to Martha's Vineyard last week to distract from abortion issues. Oh no. You know, when I put this article on the stack and I didn't pre-read this, I thought that this was going to be something stupid that Rubio did. But as I was getting down onto the stack and coming down onto this, I thought to myself, no, this is going to be Lindsey Graham, isn't it? This is going to be Lindsey Graham, who made a proposition that was not shared by any other member of the GOP, who was roundly rebuked by the GOP for his proposition. Last Tuesday, Lindsey Graham introduced a new bill that would institute a national ban on abortion after 15 weeks. The timing of Graham's announcement was controversial for two reasons. First, Graham was criticized for taking attention away from the August inflation numbers that showed inflation accelerated last month. Ironically, Graham's announcement came the same day Biden admin celebrated the Inflation Production Act, which clearly did not reduce inflation. You're right, it produced inflation. Second, Graham was criticized for drawing more attention to an issue that will galvanize Democrat voters and possibly hurt Republicans in tight elections. Many Republicans did not publicly endorse Graham's bill, not because they're pro-abortion, but because they agree with the Supreme Court that the abortion is an issue that should be adjudicated by the states. While discussing the border crisis on NPC's Meet the Depressed and absolving the Biden admin of negligence, Todd highlighted what he believes could be convenient timing between Graham's announcement and DeSantis' migrant flights. "There's the timing question that I have," Todd said. "Lindsey Graham comes out with a 15-week abortion ban, and all of a sudden the next day Ron DeSantis gets that off the front page. I'm not saying that they're connected, but boy, it seems like convenient timing." I have a picture of Chuck Todd while he's coming up with this. Hang on. I don't have it up on the stack, but I know where to find it. There it is. That's Chuck Todd as he's coming out with a convenient timing. When panelist Al Cardenas knocked on the Biden admin for neglecting the issue, Todd turned to New York Times reporter Peter Baker to double down on his suggestion. I've gotten a few people wondering if we're just getting played by Desantis. He's pulling a Trump on us, right? Todd said. But boy, he changed the subject when we all went to it. Baker agreed that Desantis succeeded in bringing the spotlight to the issue, but called the point a rational one. Unfortunately, for Todd, Republican governors have not hidden the reason for transporting migrants to Democrat-run cities. Let's see where this cue is up from.
This, we have a huge magnet, number one, and number two, there is huge. This migration issue is challenging. Haiti is falling apart. Cuba is still in bad shape. Venezuela, talk to.
Actually, I'm just realizing I should probably not do that because NBC is really, 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 really eager to copyright pop you. So let's maybe not do that. Instead, we'll just look at the image of Chuck Todd telling us the conspiracy. Ron DeSantis is connected to this person, who is connected out to Lindsey Graham, who gave the abortion ban because he wanted to distract from the inflation numbers. Look at all the red yarn. All right, that's what we have for that. Let's move on. Let's talk about something different here. Now, this is something that I had carried over from last week, but I do want to talk a bit about it here because the Biden admin has released a framework for responsible development of digital assets. That's right, they're getting ready to come back and regulate crypto. And if you do want to get out of your crypto, by the way, I will set up a wallet. You can donate all of it to me because I will hold on to it and take care of it, no matter what it is the government does. I have a little bit of crypto, and I am going to hold on to it till the end. September 16th, 2022, statements and releases. This is directly from the White House. Following the president's executive order, new reports outline recommendations to protect consumers, investors, business, financial stability, national security, and the environment. Because, of course, cryptocurrency is going to destroy the environment. Let's see. By the way, one of you guys should jump back over the YouTube side and keep Job for 9 company because the chats aren't connected today. Because of an error on Restream's side. It's not something I did, it's an error on Restream's side. But Job for 9 is over there all alone over on the YouTube side. The DLive and the Twitch chats are connected, but the YouTube side is not connected in with the rest of us, which is lame. Alright, let's see. The digital assets market has grown significantly in recent years. Millions of people globally, including 16% of adult Americans, have purchased digital assets, which reached a market cap of $3 trillion globally last November. Digital assets present potential opportunities to reinforce U.S. leadership in the global financial system and remain at the technological frontier. But they also pose a real risk, as evidenced by the recent events in crypto markets. The May crash of so-called stablecoin and the subsequent wave of insolvencies wiped out over $600 billion of investor and consumer funds. President Brandon's March 9th executive order on ensuring responsible development of digital assets outlined the first whole-of-government approach to addressing the risks and harnessing the potential benefits of digital assets. Oh, now it kicked over. Now it's all coming together. As soon as I said something, now it started working. Let's see. The 9 reports submitted to the President to date, consistent with the EO's deadlines, reflect on the input and expertise of diverse stakeholders across government, industry, academia, and civil society. Together they articulate a clear framework for responsible digital asset development and pave the way for further action at home and abroad. These reports on all agencies to promote innovation by kickstarting private sector research and development and helping cutting-edge U.S. firms find footholds in global markets. At the same time, they call for measures to mitigate the downside risks, like increased enforcement of existing laws and the creation of common-sense efficiency standards for cryptocurrency mining. Recognizing the potential benefits and risks of the U.S. central bank digital currency, the reports encourage the Federal Reserve to continue its ongoing CBDC research, experimentation, and evaluation, and a call for the creation of a Treasury-led interagency working group to support the Federal Reserve's efforts. Translation, long story short, government's making a crypto. I mean, can you still call it a crypto if the government made it? Well, the government's making a digital currency. Let's put it that way. The government is going to get into crypto. They're going to get into this, and they're going to come back out and make this now. And once again, if you guys have Ethereum, Bitcoin, Doge, Litecoin, Shiba Inu, even though that's pretty much worthless at this point, any of the above, and you think that this makes it not feasible for you to carry on, I will find a donation platform. You can send all that little crypto right over to me, because I'm not nervous about it. I will hold on to it all for you. I will take care of it. I will love it. And I will make sure that it's well taken care of, because I will hold it forever. Trust me, I haven't sold off my Shiba coin yet, and that has gone pretty much to zero at this point. And I'm still holding it because I think it's going to come back. No problem holding crypto. And one of the things that we look at with something like this is the government is going to try to scare you out of staying into your unregulated currencies, your Bitcoin, your Shiba, your Doge, your things like that. They want you to use the safe, legal tender, we control the flow of information cryptocurrency, the one that they put out. Now, for what this is doing and what this is going to do in common parlance, there are some things that we need to pay attention to with this. First off, I think that cash is going to still be king when you're trying to do things. With the introduction of a government-led cryptocurrency, there's going to be more opportunity for cryptocurrency to be spent at locations outside of Amazon or the Tesla dealer or certain places in California. You can go back out and actually spend it without turning it into cash. But the thing with Bitcoin is that it's so volatile right now. You could have a sudden spike in Bitcoin and your $60 worth of groceries that you bought on Bitcoin has now cost you $320, let's say, for an example. But there's also going to be the push to get you into a digital currency and out of your dollars and cents. Say that you go on to a live stream. Say that you go on to the Young Turks live stream one day, and you decide you're on their Twitch stream, and because you're a subscriber of this channel, you get to use the globe. And you start throwing the globe in the Young Turks Twitch live stream, or Hassan's live stream, or whatnot. You start spamming the globe in his live chat. And Twitch goes down and finds out what the globe means and where you got the globe from, which emote you got the globe from. And the next day, you go and you're standing in line for your groceries, and you've got your government cryptocurrency card that shows what your digital currency is, and you swipe it, and you know you've got plenty of money in there. And the card reader looks back and says, "I'm sorry, Dave, but you can't make that purchase here." And then you get out, you're weirded about it, and they go put your groceries away, and you go down to the coffee shop because now you want to go back and take a little bit of the edge off and figure out what the hell happened. And you swipe your crypto card at the coffee shop, and it says, "We're sorry, Dave. You had a politically dissenting opinion. You're not allowed to buy this coffee." Wouldn't you rather be compliant at this point? And that is one of the things that makes me nervous about going to a full digital currency, and why I think that cash is going to remain king for a long time. I will admit, I use digital currency way more than I should, because of my work schedule making it hard to go back and get cash out of the bank, and of course the insistence on going direct deposit for everything. This is actually supposed to be all the way down here. Let's grab one from CNBC, and then we're actually going to go back up a bit and go back into the migrant stuff. From CNBC's Crypto World, Biden White House just put out a framework on regulating crypto. Here's what's in it. From Mackenzie Sigalos. The Biden White House has just released its first ever framework on what crypto regulation in the U.S. should look like, including ways in which the financial services industry should evolve to make borderless transactions easier, and how to crack down on fraud in the digital asset space. The new directives tap the muscle of existing regulators such as the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, but nobody's mandating anything yet. The long-awaited direction from Washington has, however, captured the attention of both the crypto industry as a whole and the investors in this nascent asset class. The framework follows an executive order issued in March in which the president has called on federal agencies to examine the risks and benefits of crypto and issue official reports on their findings. Basically, get the government into the crypto industry so you can't use that to get around the government. For 6 months, government agencies have been working to develop their own frameworks and policy recommendations to address half a dozen priorities listed in the EO: consumer investor protection, promoting financial stability, countering illicit finance, U.S. leadership in the global financial system, and economic competitiveness, financial inclusion, and the responsible innovation. And by the way, Republicans will still say that we are a free market economy with all of this government intervention into something that is currently, but probably not for very much longer, one of the freest markets that we actually have. And that's not saying much, by the way. Brian Deese, the director of the National Economic Council, and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said in a statement the new guidelines are meant to position the country as a leader in governance of the digital assets ecosystem at home and abroad. Here are some of the key takeaways from the White House's new crypto framework. Number 1, fighting illicit finance. One section of the White House's new framework on crypto regulation focuses on scaring soccer mom America out of getting Bitcoin and Ethereum and anything else. Focuses on eliminating illegal activity in the industry, and measures proposed appear to have real teeth. The president will evaluate whether to call upon Congress to amend the Bank Secrecy Act, anti-tip-off statutes, and laws against unlicensed money transmitting to apply explicitly to digital assets and service providers, including digital asset exchanges and non-fungible token platforms, according to a White House fact sheet. TLDR: people might buy hookers and drugs and guns with cryptocurrency. We have to put a stop to this. Oh no, what are we going to do? And again, as I said, cash is going to wind up staying king for that, because you just keep handing out dollar bills and non-sequential serial numbers until you get what you want. Because the ledger is on so many other different computers, etc., mining rigs, etc., because the ledgers have backdoors and backups through several dozen ledgers, buying a hooker on Bitcoin is probably not the best idea in the world. Neither is buying crack on Bitcoin. Sounds like a very easy way to get caught. realistically, when they're going to do something like this, when they're fighting illicit finance, it's so that you can't go back and take your Bitcoin and ship it over the border into Canada to a trucker protest and help support the people whose banks have frozen them out. That's what that actually means. A new kind of digital dollar. The framework also points to the potential for significant benefits from a U.S. central bank digital currency, or CBDC, which you can think of as a digital form of the U.S. dollar. Except much, much easier for the government to manipulate. Well, you can buy crack with your crypto, it's just not the smartest thing in the world to do. Although, if you're on crack, you're probably not making the best decisions already. You've probably already done something, gone down the wrong path in your life at least once before if you're buying crack. Probably made at least one poor decision prior to buying crack with crypto, if you will. Right now, there are several different types of digital US dollars. Sitting in a commercial bank accounts across the country are electronic US dollars, which are partially backed by reserves under a system known as fractional reserve banking. As the name implies, the bank holds in its reserves a fraction of the bank's deposit liabilities. Transferring this form of money from one bank to another, from one country to another, operates on legacy financial rails. There are also a spate of US-pegged stablecoins, including Tether and USD Coin. Although critics have questioned whether Tether has enough dollar reserves to back its currency, it remains the largest stablecoin on the planet. US dollar coin is backed by fully reserved assets, redeemable on a one-to-one basis for US dollars, and governed by Center, a consortium of regulated financial institutions. It also relatively is easy to use no matter where you are. Also safeguarding financial stability. Central bankers and U.S. lawmakers have for years bemoaned the rise of stablecoins, a specific subset of crypto that have a value pegged to the real-world assets such as fiat currency, unlike the U.S. dollar or a commodity like gold. These non-governmental digital tokens are increasingly being used in domestic and international transactions, which is scary for central banks because they don't have a say in how the space is regulated. That's the point. That's the reason that we're going to this. In May, the collapse of Terra USD, one of the most popular US dollar pegged stablecoin projects, cost investors tens of billions of dollars as they pulled out in a panic that some have compared to a bank run. Widespread buy-in and public PSAs from respected financial institutions lent credibility to the project, further driving the narrative that the whole thing was legit. The implosion of the stablecoin project led to a series of insolvencies that erased nearly $600 billion in wealth, according to the White House. Dude, we got to figure out what's going on with the connection here, whether I got to get a new Cat 5 cable or what's happening, because, yeah, we're dropping out. We're buffering a lot more than we should be. And it's happening on my end. So we'll have to go back and figure that out. But yes, don't send crypto to groups online that are unsavory to the government, i.e. the Canadian truckers. Don't buy your crack with crypto, and use the US dollar crypto. Don't use any other crypto. Is the TLDR of what Biden's trying to do. Let's go back to migrant stuff, because I put an article in the wrong place. From Fox 4, KDFW, Dallas-Fort Worth. 9 migrant buses arrive in New York City. Mayor says he's considering legal action against Texas. From Shannon Murray. Come on, man. New York City's mayor is looking at what legal action he can take against Texas to force Greg Abbott to notify him when migrant buses are on the way. He said the city is overwhelmed. New York City Mayor Eric Adams said that he asked Abbott if they could work together to coordinate a plan, but Abbott never did and continued sending buses. 9 arrived in the city on Sunday. That's the most in a single day. Mayor Adams said the city is struggling to house the 11,000 migrants Abbott has sent to the Texas border. or from the Texas border. Since May, he's considering using cruise ships to house the asylum seekers. Adams said his legal team is also looking into possible legal challenges against Texas. Over the weekend, the mayor called out Governor Abbott and Florida Governor Ron Desantis, arguing they're relocating the migrants as a distraction. He cited their stances on abortion and guns. This is to cover up the erosion of human rights that both those governors have been participating in, and they're attempting to show other ways that they are eroding human rights of the individuals, even those new arrivals, Adams said on NBC's The Sunday Show. Do any of us like the situation we're in? Absolutely not. I would suspect the individuals in southern states that are trying to get the attention of the admin would love to have other alternatives too. It's been 606 days since Biden took office, and this problem has done nothing except continue to develop. U.S. Senator Mike Rounds, a Republican from South Dakota, said on CNN. DeSantis and Abbott agree. They argue the Biden admin is failing to deal with the crisis at the border. Last week, DeSantis sent asylum seekers to the wealthy vacation island of Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. He said immigration is on the ballot in November. And it kind of is, although not necessarily, because no matter what the Congress can put forward, if it changes and flips, is going to be vetoed by the executive. But that's what we see for that. From Politico. I think we're going to skip the Politico one because that's going to be a repeat of what was on Dallas-Fort Worth Fox 4. It is. I do have one from Just the News, though, and I've not been able to independently verify that this is true, but this is something that is worth talking about as to who it is that's actually coming, because the bottom line, and the reason that I'm presenting this article, is that we don't know. When they're coming over, when they're jumping the border, we don't know if it's military-aged men, women, children, whose kids are whose kids are being sold into sex slavery, whose kids are being drug mules, who is taking the drugs. We don't know any of that when these people get over here. We don't know a single thing about these people. So Just the News reports. Representative Tony Nels says Homeland Security confirmed Venezuela sends violent criminals to the U.S. From Madeline Hubbard. Texas Republican Representative Troy Nels on Sunday said the Department of Homeland Security confirmed that Venezuela is sending violent criminals to the U.S. through the southern border. DHS confirms that Venezuela empties prisons and sends violent criminals to our southern border, Nels tweeted. President Trump warned about this years ago. Former President Trump has said on several occasions that foreign countries are emptying their prisons into the U.S. He retweeted a post from Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, who said, "This is exactly what I've been warning about. We're being exploited at Biden's chaotic, purposeful border policy by all of our adversaries." Rep. Nels' concerns come after an alleged DHS intelligence report cited by Breitbart on Sunday instructs Border Patrol agents to be on the lookout for inmates that appear to have been purposely freed by Venezuelan socialist leader Nicolas Maduro. The report comes as the U.S. is experiencing the largest number of migrant encounters on record. So there are some things to talk about this outside of it just being the violent criminals. Because again, my big thing off that is not, oh yes, it is for 100% certain that they're emptying the prisons and violent criminals and this and that and the next thing. My big point on that is that we don't know. But let's look at the political situations in both Mexico and Venezuela. Now, as we look at the fact that we're seeing the DHS, or not the DHS, the DOJ in our country, being used to go after political enemies, the January 6th rioters, political politicians, and eventually it's going to come down to anybody who has that flag hanging up behind them. Eventually it's going to come back down to that point. They don't appear afraid at all of the political fallout of going after their political enemies, and their friends over on Twitter are supporting them greatly on something like this. So with that being said, once you're into a socialist totalitarian country, which is one that we're talking about coming here, who gets put into prison? Outside of violent criminals, murderers, rapists, etc. Who else gets put into prison? Political enemies. Maduro, being a totalitarian at this point, probably has a lot of his political enemies locked up. Also going on with this and talking more about what's happening here, Razorfist put out a very, very good video a few years ago. I think this was in 2017, 2018 when he put this one out, talking about why we need the wall. I think it was 18, now that I think about it. Because it's the same thing, although the Mexican people that are crossing are doing so a little bit more voluntarily. Maduro is emptying out the president, sending his people out, up to the U.S. Like, get out of here, run, go to the U.S., if this is actually the case. The Mexican people who come across the border illegally, while the border is wide open, it's a political relief valve. Now, Mexico is, in many of its cases, run mostly by the cartels. You've got a few touristy hotspots that are left alone, but the majority of Mexico is run by the drug cartels. And Obrador is owned by them. So now, you've got a situation where people are starving. They have to give their tribute out to the people that are in charge of the government, that are not actually elected into the government, just in charge of the government. They've got to go through all the fun gang stuff that we know that gangs like that do. And the people who get fed up with it don't go back, they don't try to vote, they don't try to have a revolution. They run to the border. That's Obrador's little political release valve. It's his pressure release valve. Oh, things are getting too bad in the country? Oh, well, let's get some more people up to the border. Let's encourage some more of them out of there. Oh, well, they're not going to try to take over and redo our government and have a revolution. They'll just go and escape to the U.S. If Maduro is emptying his prisons out, which are probably, at least in some point, filled with his political enemies, once again, you've got your political release valve. Oh, just send them out to the U.S. They're far away from here, and the people who are against my government aren't sitting out here showing the people in prison that stood against the government. It's a win-win for everybody. But I can't confirm that these are the prisons from Venezuela. What I can confirm is we have no idea who these people are. And that is a situation we're going to continue to be in for quite a while. And I don't want everyone to sit here and think that I'm constantly ragging on the Biden admin. When he does something good, I'm going to come out and say that, okay, you did something good. From the Hill, Biden signs a bill eliminating civil statute of limitations for child sex abuse victims. From Chloe Fulmar. President Biden on Friday signed a bill that will eliminate the statute of limitations for people who were sexually abused as minors to file a civil claim. The Eliminating Limits for Justice for Child Sex Abuse Victims Act was passed by the House by voice vote on Tuesday after passing the Senate by unanimous consent in March. The bill eliminates time constraints for survivors to file civil claims related to sex abuse crimes against minors, including forced labor, sex trafficking, sexual abuse, and sexual exploitation of children. Previously, minors who survived such abuse were able to file federal claims until they reached the age of 28 or until a decade after the violation or injury was discovered. No federal statute of limitations was in place for criminal claims regarding child sex abuse. The bill was initially introduced by Dick Durbin and Marsha Blackburn, and co-sponsored by Dianne Feinstein, John Cornyn, and Patrick Leahy. The science of trauma is clear. It often takes years for victims to come forward, Durbin said in a statement. After the House passed the bill, our bipartisan bill honors the basic notions of justice for survivors, and I was proud to work with Blackburn and our colleagues in the House to lead it across the finish line by signing this legislation into law. We can finally help survivors have their day in court and a moment of healing when they are ready. Now, it is not really in question right now how I feel about people who want to go out and diddle a bunch of kids. I think I've made that pretty clear. I don't think they should be in a situation where they can get to the point where they can be sued. Feet first into the wood chipper. That's how I've always said. That's how I've always felt about it. Feet first so they can watch themselves go. Still alive, by the way. But given the fact that we do have constitutional protections against cruel and unusual punishment, we go the next route. And the proper route. And yes, as the article says, this is something that can have far-reaching, wide effects on people for years and years and years and years and years to come, sometimes affecting them throughout their entire lives. Now, and I don't know, by the way, because we never got into that conversation, a girl that there was a mutual crush with at one point who now hates me because of my stance on vaccines, which is fine. She's actually doing really well with her life. She was Canadian, so there's that on top of it. So coming together probably was never going to be a possibility, but she had told me, because you guys remember during the vaccine times when they were talking about getting people hammered and then convincing them to go take the jab in the bar, which is a really, really, really bad idea. First off, these people don't want people to be in a bar to begin with during the commie coup, but getting them hammered and convincing them to take the jab in the bar, I conflated that with date rape. And she had informed me, and at her young age on top of this too, she informed me that she had been sexually abused 4 times in her life. And basically, how dare you compare those two things to one of the... Let's be frank, if somebody gets you hammered, then tries to convince you to put something into your body that you wouldn't normally put into there, I can see where the parallels are. But given her young age, I have enough reason to believe that one of those was as a minor. And this is still having a lasting effect on a potential relationship years later. This is a long-lasting thing, and of course, since there's no statute of limitations for criminal charges, why should there be a statute of limitations on civil? If you have messed up some kid's life this much, that you could still go to prison for it 70 years later, you should be able to effectively help that person's life, get that person back on their feet too, even if it's 70 years later. Even if it is 70 years later, you should. Because unfortunately, because of the constitutional protection against cruel and unusual punishment, we can't go feet first, still alive, head last, into the wood chipper. So, when he does good, I'll tell him he did good. I have no problem with that. We are up on the clock right now, so we've got to grab a few. I mean, we spent way too long talking about the, and this is my fault, obviously, because I'm the host, talking about the main topics, and then we have the shotgun blast at the bottom that we never ever get to, which is, oh darn, including the Mar-a-Lago thing. Why would we want to talk about that coming into the midterms for a person who's not on the ballot? Another little bit of baseness before we go into some cringe, and then we'll finish out on the cringe and head out of here for the day. GOP Senator John Kennedy points out that we already have a plan to repay student debt. It's called a job. And we have video of this too, by the way. The Biden admin announced a plan to cancel massive amounts of federal student loan debt, but Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana has pointed out that we already have a plan to repay student debt. It's called a job, and it's working just fine. Of course, he said it on Hannity, because he couldn't come out and say it anywhere else except for Hannity. Let's read. Sorry, not let's read, let's listen.
And then for his second trick, the president decided to spend $1 trillion to forgive student debt. Now, we already had a plan to repay student debt. It's called a job, and it was working just fine.
You're on your A game. You are on your A game. I'm not interrupting.
But if you look at this from 35,000 feet, I think this is obvious, and that's why I say that President Biden is inflation's best friend.
Well, yeah, we've known that for a while. Inflation loves Biden. I just thought that was kind of based, and I wanted to put that up on the stack for the day. We'll end out on a little bit of cringe, because while the DOJ and the Biden admin are doing good things for the victims of sexual assault, they're also rounding it out with doing very, very bad things, because that's what they do. From Ars Technica, big gaming companies get DHS help to keep players from becoming terrorists. Researchers target online gaming companies like Activision and Roblox. Yeah, you heard that right, by the way. Last December, the UN warned of an overlooked but critical emerging terrorist threat: extremists radicalizing members of online gaming communities. Despite ample interest in saving gamers from such an exploitation, experts say that a lack of research funding on the topic has put the gaming industry behind social networks. When it comes to counterterrorism efforts, that's starting to change, though, within the past week. Researchers told Ars that the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has for the first time awarded funding. Nearly $700,000. Those are like rookie numbers for the DHS, by the way. They should be putting out $700 million, because that's typically the check that they write out, to a research group working directly with major gaming companies to develop effective counterterrorism methods and protect vulnerable gamers. I'm willing to bet this was in a no-bid contract, and somebody in DHS has a relative in this research group. The new project will span 2 years. It's spearheaded by Middlebury College's Institute of International Studies, which hosts the Center on Terrorism, Extremism, and Counterterrorism. Vice reported that other partners include a nonprofit called Take This, which focuses on gaming impacts on mental health, and a tech company called Logically, which Vice says works to solve the problem of bad online behavior at scale. The researchers have summarized their overarching goals for the DHS project as the development of a set of best practices and centralized resources for monitoring, evaluation of extremist activities, as well as a series of training workshops for the monitoring, detection, and prevention of extremist exploitation in gaming spaces for community managers, multiplayer designers, lore developers, mechanics designers, and trust and safety professionals. I'm not here making an official announcement yet, by the way, just so you know. But there is a reason, and I just talked with Mr. Behavior, that one of the things that I want to do, because we see Tim Pool getting in on the culture sphere, and the Daily Wire putting out movies, Tim Pool doing the recording studio, also wanting to put out television entertainment, why I want to do a video game studio for Turns of Pages, and why I'm working, I think, with Mr. Behavior to go make some of that happen. To get the money into this and get started off of this, because we need spaces. And of course, Vice is the one that's doing this as well. Take This researcher director Rachel Cowart told Ars that the primary objective of the project is to develop gaming industry-focused resources. Her group's ambitious plan is to reach out to big companies first, then engage smaller companies and indie developers for maximum impact. I'm telling you right now, if I'm an indie developer and this person comes out to my studio, this person will be escorted out by police if necessary. Newhouse said within the DHS, the FBI has become increasingly interested in research like CTECs to combat domestic terrorism, but to his knowledge, no federal organization has funded such data collection, although his project is funded for 2 years. Newhouse wants to push the gaming industry within 5 years to implement the same standards for combating extremism that social networking platforms already have. There is extremism all the time on social media platforms. It's just the social media, it's just the extremism that the current DOJ likes. I want game developers, especially big ones like Roblox and Microsoft, to have dedicated counter-extremism in-game teams, Newhouse told ours. In these days, we need to push to be that sophisticated on that games industry side as well. So there you go. They're coming into another space to combat extremism. Aren't you excited? All right, I think that's all that we have time for today. So the last thing that we do on Tuesdays, we look at the Twitter trending to see what it is that that Twitter wants us to be looking at. So let's get this over here and let's talk about Twitter trending. Our trending tabs, and what we do on Tuesdays, we look at the top 5 trending. We skip over Tuesday vibes, Tuesday thoughts, Tuesday motivations, and see what it is that Twitter wants us to be talking about. Number 1 trend in the United States today, National Voter Registration Day. September 20th marks the annual nonpartisan civic holiday in the U.S., encouraging voters to check their status. Mine's good. And if you do want to vote in this election, if you're not like my friend John who thinks that, oh, well, voting is just going out and enforcing your will on people that you don't want to enforce your will on, then go check. Make sure that your registration is current and ready to go. Check in with your local office, make sure that your address is correct, that you have your proper ID documents, and that you are ready to go out in November and vote. Number 2, Chara. Hockey player Zdeno Chara will retire from the NFL with the Boston Bruins after he signs his final one-day contract on Tuesday. A one-day contract, you say? Zdeno Chara is signing a one-day contract to retire a Bruin. Okay, so I'm guessing he probably got traded out. Didn't like his new team, and he's going to come back and take a day and probably one game and come to his retirement and be a Boston Bruin at retirement. Let's see. The final moment of Zdeno Chara's NHL career, scoring the last goal of his career in the final minute of the last game of the year with the team that drafted him, the New York Islanders. So I guess maybe he's not going to go back and play a game. So, enjoy your retirement, Chara. Enjoy Boston, by the way, too. It seems that you very much appreciate the area. I don't anymore, but I used to. So enjoy it. I'm sure that you'll have a lot of fans out there still. Trending. Chinese characters. Chinese characters is trending, which can mean only one thing. Elon Musk has got another kid. Image. I think about this when I want to waste time. Hashtag Chinese character. Let me honor all of which I've been given and a life worthy of my gifts. So, I don't know what this means. If anybody can read Chinese, please let me know what this means. Because I have absolutely no idea. Alright, the fourth one, number 5, but we skipped Tuesday Vibe. Erica Banks. Erica Banks looks like a whole angry bird, really just trying to justify not hanging out with certain women because they're not thick enough, brain filled with silicone and hookah. Camille Burgos says, it ain't nothing wrong with getting y'all's bodies done. I'm here for it. The nasty ass attitudes, bringing other women down, fake personalities and entitlements some of y'all have afterwards that people don't like. You can still be you and have confidence. Please don't be an Erica Banks. So, I don't know who Erica Banks is. Apparently it's somebody who's some sort of plus size model of some sort. I have no idea. But she's trending. Man, I guess I really grew up and got out of pop culture, didn't I? Alright, and the last one that we'll do is hashtag NFT Day. You may have heard that tomorrow is International NFT Day. To celebrate, we're planning to highlight some of the historic NFT projects on our homepage. Which OG NFT projects deserve to be highlighted and why? Let us know in the replies. I still don't know what an NFT is. I thought they'd fallen out of favor at some point. I didn't know that there was still a thing, but apparently you can still get a JPEG of a monkey smoking a cigarette, and it'll be worth $1 million. I have no idea why. I really don't. But apparently it's still a thing that you can do. I'm not really sure why it's non-fungible either, because everyone can go back and look at it on Twitter, but apparently you can't funge it. It's non-fungible. So if that's a thing that you're into, first off, can you please explain it to me? And second off, enjoy your National NFT Day. Because it appears that we've come to that day in history. And with that, we're out of here. We're done. Today's Twitter trending left me with more questions than answers. Now I'm really, really confused, and I don't know why. Chinese characters, NFTs, voter registration. I don't know. I don't know what to do anymore. Help me, Obi-Wan. You're our only hope. All right, where's my outro music? Let's get out of here. All right, so thank you everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat. Everybody that hung out and kept the live chat going here. Apologize for the initial disconnect from YouTube where nobody could see each other's chats for a while. And it's funny that I said something on air and all of a sudden it was mysteriously fixed. But with that, we're going to head out of here for the day. I am going to be trimming up some of the leftover because, well, we've got way too much. And with midterms, our main topics are going to be taking up the majority of what we have to talk about here. So we'll be talking about that. We'll come back here tomorrow with more news, more headlines, and more stuff to talk about on what our government thinks of us and what we think of them as well. So definitely looking forward to seeing you guys back here tomorrow for more news, more highlights, more videos, and more contemporary. Plus something I'm thankful for because tomorrow is Wednesday. Definitely looking forward to that. We will see you here next time over here on Contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar. And this is Contemporary. Take care.